And welcome back to another GACC podcast where we're going to be discussing games, anime, computers, and collectibles. I'm your host, Harrison, and to my right,
James.
And to my left,
Faust. I am sick.
You are sick.
I am sick.
And we're going to go through the news of the week, but I think we're thinking about doing a slight format change in the next month.
Is there going to be balls, juggling balls?
Do you want to learn how to juggle?
Hey, there's a school for juggling.
That's called multitasking, and I don't think you're very good at it.
I'm better than you.
Sound off in the comments below. James will juggle.
Probably not going to happen, but you could sound off.
We're going to probably take the GACC format podcast slightly, and we're going to take it so it's going to come out into like bits
installments
of 15 minutes on 3 or 4 topics.
Yeah.
And then what's going to end up happening is at the end of the week, we're going to put it out as the entire thing. So that way you can either watch the long one or you can watch little segments, but we're still put out the audio at the beginning of the week.
Yeah.
In its long format.
So shorter show, released in installments.
For the video portion.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah. We'll see how that works out. So also sound off in the comments below if you have a topic to suggest. We'd like to hear from you. Definitely.
Yes. So
I'd like to start us off with a little bit of a nice tidbit.
What's that?
They have released the 2017 nominees for the National Toy Hall of Fame.
Ooh.
Yeah, and there's some pretty interesting ones on here. Now, the National Toy Hall of Fame is run by the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York.
Uh-huh.
The finalists for the 2017 induction, not all of these are making it into the Hall of Fame. The 12 playthings up for considerations are the games Clue, Uno, and Risk.
Okay.
Right. Brand name classics Matchbox Cars, My Little Pony, Transformers, and Pez dispensers.
Pez dispensers are a toy.
And then,
technically, yes, they are.
Vintage holdovers like the Magic 8-Ball and the Wiffle Ball, and broader categories of toy in play food, paper airplanes, and sand.
Sand?
Yes.
Might as well put ball and cup on there, too.
Well, the ball has already been inducted into the Hall of Fame, as in all balls.
All balls.
All balls.
Then you don't need the wiffle ball.
So you can play with balls.
You can play with balls.
Well, that's a timeless
Very good.
thing.
We actually figured that out.
Yes.
Yeah. So the ones that I found interesting of this were, yes, you were right, Pez dispensers. I mean, they always seem like these little collectible bits of kitsch. And yeah, they're things that dispense candy, but can you really play any sort of game?
Well, if you're like 5, yeah, you can.
If you're 5, you can play with sand and, rocks.
That's why sand's on there.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well say a bubblegum machine is a toy.
Would you let your 5-year-old play with a bubblegum machine?
Well, you do when you put it in a quarter and you watch the spiral as it comes down to get your gumball.
Would you hand your 5-year-old their own personal bubblegum machine?
Some parents do nowadays.
Some do, yeah. That's true.
I guess so, yeah.
So the thing about it is these things are timeless. I mean, we do cover collectibles. These things are going to be inducted into a Hall of Fame.
And I do have my Star Trek collectible Pez dispensers. One of their anniversaries.
So Pez dispensers are collectible. There are people who collect different Uno decks over the years.
Yeah.
Different versions of Clue and Risk. Risk has got several different versions.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Which is weird because it's a boring game.
Because you have the Metal Gear Solid version.
Yeah,
I think there's a Lord of the Rings
There's
one,
a Lord of the
too.
Rings version. There's a version where you have a future version where you have underwater cities and moon bases.
A boring book turned into a boring board game.
I guess. True.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think Risk is boring. I like it.
And so the strange one that was more ambiguous to me than anything was the play food announcement.
Play food?
Yeah, play food.
Yeah, it's like those little ovens and stuff that kids get.
Well, it's these little bits of food, little plastic tiny things of food.
Oh,
that goes with like the kitchen sets and stuff like that, I guess.
Gotcha, I know what you're talking about.
Little food tidbits. I guess, I mean, if you're going to have things like sand and paper airplanes.
You might as well, right?
Might as well.
Paper airplanes I can see because they are a timeless thing played with by kids.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Sand, yeah, kind of, because, I mean, lots of kids want sandboxes when they're young. And even though it's something, within, nature that's played with, you might as well put dirt in there.
Well, sand. I mean,
no, sand's different than dirt.
Sand's different than dirt.
Okay, dirt you can eat.
You can eat sand, too.
In the Hall of Fame curated by the Strong Museum, they currently recognize 62 other toys that have been inducted over the years, including Etch-a-Sketch, Lego, the ball, like I said before, Star Wars action figures, and the Slinky. Last year, the ones that got inducted included both Fisher-Price Little People and Dungeons & Dragons.
Nice.
So...
I can see that. Dungeons and Dragons has become a phenomenon since it got introduced in the 70s.
And it's gone through several iterations, but each iteration has been able to stand on its own and continue to be a playable thing.
Except for 4.0. That one sucked.
Well, I mean, 4.0 invited the game, made the game more open to a lot of other people who had trouble understanding the rule sets from the previous versions.
That was basically World of Warcraft on paper.
I mean, I could see where that argument could be made, but take it from somebody who's only had a mild induction into the previous titles. True. Going through a 4.0 book was way more approachable
than 2.0.
Than a 2.0 book.
Yeah, that's true. Because I was not introduced to 2.0. I was 3.5.
But aren't MMOs really just a digital version of Dungeons and Dragons, anyways?
No, because
it can be argued that most any role-playing game
is pretty much Dungeons and Dragons.
I mean.
Yeah,
it's either that. It's either they're trying to emulate Dungeons and Dragons or BattleTech.
Yeah, that's true. I remember BattleTech.
Yeah,
maybe.
But anyways,
or Fallout.
Well, Fallout was based on the GURPS. Yeah. So that was just a nice little kind of like puff piece tidbit that I found was really interesting.
Pretty cool.
The big news that I was really excited to hear about is not only has Bethesda confirmed that Skyrim is indeed going to be released on the Switch. I am not buying Skyrim again.
You probably are.
No. I'm not saying it won't be in my house. Somebody will probably pick up Skyrim for the Switch, but I'm not buying it.
I'm still glad I've never played through that game.
But they have also confirmed that Doom, the latest iteration of Doom, and Wolfenstein 2 are also going to have Switch ports.
You know what else is also coming to the Switch? The arcade classics from Nintendo. That's coming on the 27th. So you play the classic Mario games that no one cared about.
They have also confirmed a Kirby title.
Ooh, which one?
Going to be for the Switch. A new Kirby title.
Oh, a new one?
And they're coming out with a new Kirby.
Nice.
You mean he's not just showing up in Smash Brothers again?
No. I mean, it's almost guaranteed there is going to be probably a
Smash Brothers. Yeah, probably. Yeah,
something like that. And along with the arcade classics being ported, like you mentioned, to the Switch, they have also confirmed that not only with the SNES Classic coming out, Nintendo is also resuming production of the NES Classic and making more, which we knew was coming. It's how Nintendo kind of does these things. If you've researched anything about their market release strategy for the Amiibo, then this kind of thing, party foul, this kind of thing was to be expected. There is a demand for it. Of course, they're going to supply it, but they want to keep it limited, to keep prices high, and to keep a collector value, a sense of return on that value, an immediate return on that value.
Well, that's interesting that they're doing it there because they're going the opposite way this time with the mini consoles. So they come out and made a statement saying that the Super Nintendo, they are going to put a lot more into the market because they did not expect the demand last time for retro consoles. So they're going to have a larger supply of the SNES mini consoles this time. And I've heard that they're actually decided to resend and make more NES classic consoles too for this holiday season.
Cool.
So you don't have to go buy from a scalper, It's
like some guy who's going to charge you like $250.
Yeah.
For a device that's only worth like $30.
So it is the classic 80. Console as advertised previously. They're not putting any new spin on it or making it a seasonal thing or something like that. Still going to be the 30 or 60 games that they 30 games.
Yeah.
And then the SNES is going to also have like 30 or so games or something that are classic titles held up, stand the test of time kind of titles.
Except for Star Fox 2.
Yeah.
Aren't they just emulators basically?
It is.
Basically, it's emulators on a computer.
Yeah, they're emulators. I'm not sure about the SNES Classic, but the NES Classic was basically a Raspberry Pi,
and that's what the SNES is going to be.
Yeah,
it's
a case around a Raspberry Pi.
Yes,
if you really want to look at it, it's a very specialized, customized Raspberry Pi.
How much is a Raspberry Pi by itself?
$35. And that's by itself, no case. No extra cabling or anything like that.
So with case and extra stuff, probably like $50.
Probably about the same cost as the retail for NES
$80.
Classics. About that. when you come down to it, like the man hours, getting a case for it, programming it, having the emulators, finding the ROMs, which is dubiously legal. Like this
unless
is
you
stuff
own the game, then it's not illegal.
If
you own the game, it says it right in the description.
Having not looked at reviews, I cannot say that I support this statement fully, but I will say that at least if Nintendo is releasing a console with their games on it, that they are at least committed to some level of playability of those games.
Okay.
Now, with that statement made, I know that their virtual machine titles were some of the most horribly ported, emulated pieces of crap. I personally found
That's not true for everything.
I found it impossible to play Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland using the virtual console. I had to homebrew my Wii and work on get an emulator on it with a ROM, and had an even far better playable version.
You know what would get me on board with these two systems? Is if they released the systems and let me choose the games I wanted, and then charged me. Like if they had like a checkout and said you could choose the games you want.
You could load these games.
And then load these games and then charge you and then send it out to you. That would get me on board with this.
That's called a Nintendo Switch, sir.
Yeah, that is called a Switch.
Yeah,
essentially.
You're going to buy them through the store there.
You know that there's going to be some sort of store release of these classic titles.
Yeah,
in some way.
But now that's what I'm saying on this NES Classics edition and this SNES Classic edition. That's what I'm saying.
So the other thing I kind of mentioned, I might have mentioned and passed over, I can't remember, I'm a little addled, is Okami is getting an HD re-release.
Oh, cool! That's
so
that dog.
You were a fan
one, right?
of so the one dog.
Yeah, the
does
one.
The
With, yeah, I
calligraphy.
like that. I like the music. I love the music in that game.
I remember keep on getting mentioned in the same breath as Wind Waker for some reason. Is it
the same animation style? Yeah,
kind of like cell shading and everything.
Yeah, cell shading animation style,
See,
but gameplay, no.
Do you feel, because it's been a while, and this is sort of in the realm of they're re-releasing everything HD that they can manage to port. Is Okami just one of those ones? It's just another port because they think they can get more money off of selling it back to people?
Probably. Yeah.
Probably. Like, hey, buy the updated version.
The game was fun.
Yeah,
and I did like Wind Waker too.
A lot of them have just been, a fresh coat of paint per se, versus a full remake. There's not too many that have actually gone the full remake route. The only one I think that's going to be coming out in February is Secret of Mana HD. Is a full remake. Like we go from 2D sprites to poly shaded cells and everything else like that. So, at that point, you're taking the story and you're enhancing it that way. And I think Final Fantasy VII Remake is basically going that way too. So, you're getting a new experience from the old one versus we've smoothed out and anti-aliased kind of stuff.
Kind
of like Sonic Mania then, because that one's a remake, but they bosses.
They built it from the ground up.
Yeah.
And so have been playing a little bit of it. It's actually available on our other channel, Jenny Fedora Productions. Me and other James, have been playing Sonic Mania. And I will say it is some rather faithful reproductions of the original Sonic levels, at least in half, like the first half of it.
Yeah.
And the second half is sort of a remix of that level with some new mechanics added in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it has the same game feel, essentially, of how I remember Sonic playing. Now, that said, I have to understand that, the Sega Genesis, its burst blast processing or whatever and everything didn't really affect me as a kid. But being able to play these games and feel that kind of responsiveness and have that sort of twitch reflex thing, in my mind, still remains solid in this new iteration where they have pretty much doubled the frame rate and smoothed the sprite animations involved in it and such. So it feels like the game should play in my memory, if that makes any sense. That it panders to nostalgia blindness quite well. Quite well.
Yes.
It is still a very solid game. It's very well designed, has the physics that you remember, has the game feel that you would remember playing it previously. It's a great way to introduce people to what is good about Sonic. And, when they start saying, well, what's about this stuff like Colors in 2006 and Unleash, you're like, we don't speak about the dark times.
Is that the one where he fell in love with a human?
2006.
2006. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of...
He got real creepo on the princess, yeah.
There's a lot of dark times in Sonic.
There are a lot of dark times.
But
there also is another news that's coming out that's not video game related. The new iPhone 8's coming out.
Yeah.
And that fits under hardware. I can see that. Unfortunately.
And also the iPhone 10.
So...
to celebrate the 10th anniversary since the iPhone was released.
You see what the price is on the iPhone 10?
Oh God, it's like $1,600 or something like that.
Just 1,000.
Just 1,000.
No,
1,000.
you sure?
Yes.
Because that was what I read. It was more.
The way that I saw the comparison made was it's $900 for the new iPhone. It's $883 and some change for the entire menu at Cracker Barrel. So, do buy responsibly.
I do remember that meme. Yeah, you're right.
And the thing is like I saw like people fawning all over these phones, and I'm just like, they're not doing anything spectacular that
Nothing
hasn't
new, really.
already been done. But I understand Apple's not necessarily the best at being innovative, but refining the process so that way it is better.
It is about design and sales.
Yeah.
It has always been about design and sales and maintaining this sort of status symbol chic that makes it so people who use the iOS, they find that the transition to Android is a little jarring.
There is one thing
fair,
I'll tell you I like about Apple.
Yeah.
And this is the only thing. It's the fact that their store is more unified.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't allow. If you go to the Android market store, there's a lot of useless crap in there that should not even be there.
There is a lot of shovelware, bloatware,
that's
malware.
Also part of my problem with Apple is how hard they control the environment.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I like. I don't have to deal with all that bloatware crap, but I'm not going to say I'm going to go out and buy an Apple. I'm not going to go drop $1,000 on this fucking phone, all right?
I've used an iPod Touch, which gives me sort of a viewpoint into the iOS. Mm-hmm. And how things at least used to be, not how they are now.
Okay.
I will say it's gone through several iterations since the Touch.
And it's been decent.
But I will say the thing that has prevented me from switching to Apple is that it's an entire arcology. It's an atmosphere of tech where if you have one part, you almost feel like you
have to
amputated.
have the other parts.
Yeah, you have to have the Mac computer, you have to have the iPad, you have to have the peripherals.
I never had that feeling,
and
but
the other thing is being on the Android side of things has made me a little jealous, I think is the wrong term, but it's the only one that really kind of fits, in that every single thing that is a cool peripheral
is for Apple.
A smartphone. It almost seems like Apple just sort of buys that contract and locks out anything to compete in sort of an antitrust style kind of thing, where it's like you'll find a lot of knockoffs and derivatives, and they'll allow that stuff to come out as some sort of like cheap alternative and be an Android level thing. But the actual peripheral, the music integration, the audio integration, the cases, the camera lenses, all of this stuff seems to be bought out by Apple and saying you will only produce this for Apple for an exclusive amount of time in a non-compete kind of
I would say during the first 5 years that was definitely a good feeling, or the true feeling at least. But I think that's actually largely gone away within at least the last 4, because the last 4 Apple has really not been locking things out, or at least they've had a hard time locking things out.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you can get for the iPhones, you've been able to get for the Android. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of aspects, there are things you now get for the Android you really can't even get for the Apple. The big problem I've had is, sure, they helped set the trends for things such as the smartphones and the touch screens and mobile gaming and everything like that. But they've failed to innovate, past a certain point. They become stagnant with these new phones. And
I agree.
That's
my favorite iPhone was the iPhone 4S, the metal one,
mm-hmm.
the one that I could literally drop. I've dropped it several times. Actually, I only dropped it once, not several times. I dropped it once.
Excuse me.
And nothing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they were pioneers in the market, and they really were trailblazers that forced Android to catch up in the market. And
the thing about it, like I said, is it became less of a focus on innovation or pushing any kind of technology and more about a design chic, a status symbol kind of thing. And so it's selling people on jewelry more than it is selling people on technology or capability.
So you're saying they're like the Rolex of the phone industry?
They've essentially maintained a benchmark level of involvement as far as the innovation is concerned, but in several dubious gray area kind of claims, they have managed to infringe on patents, prevent innovation, push proprietary kind of hardware and less well designed peripherals that demand people keep replacing.
Yeah.
And keep up with the Joneses or Kardashians or whatever you want to use as far as that thing is concerned. But basically keep buying iPhones, keep buying the stuff that revolves around
But
iPhones.
that's also the same things with the other cell phone companies too. Buy the next Samsung.
Well,
buy the next LG.
It is, except for there's a weird difference with Apple. Like there was recently a class action lawsuit saying that their phones don't last long enough, even though they try to say that they make the longest lasting phones, the most resistant phones, the most economical phones, and everything else like that. They're good for the environment.
I think it was a 4S. That's lasted me a long time.
And well, comes I think in with the iPhone 7s and 6s.
Okay,
is where this class action lawsuit with like them breaking or failing like within shortly going out of warranty. And this class action was brought, and their argument in court was our warranty only guarantees this product for a year, even though the contracts that you buy on phones are for 2 years.
Yeah,
and their whole thing that they tout is, even by their own statistics, they tout in a separate thing from the warranty, is that their phones are used on average 3 years. So
they only cover it for a year, 1/3 of its proposed life cycle.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I don't know if you people might be familiar with this, but have you ever heard about trying to repair any sort of Apple product whatsoever?
Yeah,
No.
they have repair shops for them.
You don't really
repair shops. You know what the repair shops do? They sell you a refurbished model.
Yeah.
Do you know that for sure?
They don't repair anything. What they do is you take in, you say this is broken, and unless it's something they can fix on the spot with like a software reset or something like that, if it is an actual hardware failure of some point, they will take that and say, we will sell you a refurbished model.
Yeah, and if you have Apple Care, you can get like 2 refurbished underneath it, basically
for free.
And then they send off your broken phone to be refurbished and sold back to somebody else.
Yeah. So this is part of the whole thing: is they sell you need the Apple Care as for 3 years.
You do understand they do the same thing with other phones too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because they do the same exact thing with Samsung, LG. They do the same thing.
At no point was it stated that any of the Android side of things has done any of this better. Unfortunately, all of the Android side of things are kind of following the model and saying, well, if they can do that if they can be that horrible about their innovation, about their repair structure, about their warranty structure, we can be slightly less horrible and look better for it.
So what I'm getting here is cell phones are bad. Okay.
So, smartphones essentially are kind of bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's buying into this level of technology that they convince you is necessary.
That you have to have this smartphone at all times, everywhere you go.
You need to have it. You absolutely must have it. I'm like, you know what? My smartphone has been more of an intrusion into my lifestyle than anything else. If I don't feel like I really need one. I just make use of it because I have it.
Because it's there.
Yeah. But I could easily cut my cell phone bill down by 1/3, cutting out stuff like data and, the warranty payments and the lease payments on a smartphone, and go with some clamshell or some brick that just does that. But, the cell phone carriers, they just push the smartphone on people. They say, this is all that's available. This is all that we've got. And it's like, you know what? What if I just want a brick? What if I just want something that I can just make phone calls on?
They don't make those anymore.
That I can just send texts on. They don't make those anymore. Everybody must have a smartphone. No, you don't need a smartphone. It doesn't really accomplish anything.
There's a lot of things we don't need, but it's not a matter of need.
But once again, and I brought this up 2 shows running now, so I might as well bring it up again. The phone, in my mind, is one of the biggest front runners in what I believe is the eventual unification of all technologies. In that, smartphones have this idea of this all-encompassing personal device that you carry with you. And now it's your music player, it's your internet connection, it's your camera, it's your voice recorder. It makes phone calls and texts, so begrudgingly, and it sends your email. And it does all of these things, and it's trying to become a gaming platform with startups like Wonder and things like NVIDIA's additions and stuff like that. They're trying to take on, being a reader, the screens keep getting bigger, being a web browser.
Yeah.
They want to do everything all in one.
It wants to do everything. As soon as they figure out they can make a phone that can cook, I think they're getting closer.
Well, right now I think
you can order food. Does that count? You can have it delivered to your house.
One of the big things pushed with this iPhone X was the whole Face ID, like their chip.
The facial recognition.
Yeah, the facial recognition, and the chip was like basically called the Apple 11 biometric, the A11X or something like that, biometric chip, and they're touting how it's going to be like the best at like facial recognition and everything else like this. I'm like, this is going to fall flat.
Yeah,
or it might not. You don't know.
Biometric stuff, like
that's the thing is everything that we've said so far in the past that we said has failed. Some of it has, and some of it has succeeded.
That's because everything that gets innovated, everything that gets tried, has to get over that hump of it's going to fail. And that's the first thing anybody says about anything. People have said that about toilet paper, toothpaste, and eyeglasses.
It's going to fail.
It's going to fail.
It's going to fail.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with this one is, biometrics and facial recognition has been tried. It's being tried on a lot of fronts, and it's not taken off. And it's even been tried in the phones before. So I'm dubious here. This might be the one to do it, but I'm still dubious because there are so many outside factors, such as, what happens when you have facial hair? What happens when you grow facial hair? What happens when you shave?
What happens with women who put on tons of concealing makeup?
Yeah. Or glasses or sunglasses or, you put on a ski mask because it's cold outside.
There was, not too long ago, I'd say like 2 or 3 years ago, when they were first starting to put out this facial recognition technology, I believe on the Samsung phones or something like that. And Samsung was using it as a sort of a selling point until they figured out how easy it was to defeat.
Right. And they were and we're done.
Like, even if you find somebody who looks even marginally close to you, like, my face would unlock his phone, is basically how bad it was.
Yeah.
Or
you could fool it with a piece of paper.
Yeah.
A photo.
But it's the same thing as like the fingerprint scanners. Like, I've got a fingerprint scanner on my phone. I thought it was the coolest thing ever when I had a fingerprint scanner on my laptop when I had that Lenovo ThinkPad.
Oh yeah, the little
like that. That was just cool because I had to sit there and just kind of like gently caress it and be like,
And laptops had facial recognition too.
My laptop,
but that was issues with that too because you had to be exactly the right angle. Yeah.
The only thing that was special out of this event was they're going to be pushing for alternate reality. So your augmented reality, alternate reality type stuff.
VR porn.
Yeah.
I've tried that recently. It's weird.
Yeah, I would bet.
Yeah.
So, you want to elaborate on this?
Sure.
You go on.
Okay. If you want me to.
Because
she was a redhead.
You brought it up.
I turned it on.
The thing about VR porn, gentlemen, and
ladies.
I will say gentlemen, mostly because right now VR porn is almost solidly targeted towards straight men. Like, I guarantee you this. Because it is easier to put a straight man in a sort of situation that these VR cameras could record in.
Okay.
Which means that 90% of VR porn right now basically devolves into some form of cowgirl position. And on top of that, I had this really, really common recurring thing of Weekend at Bernie's style flashbacks because the porn actor that is your avatar, because that's the thing is supposed to be this immersive kind of experience. So you have this avatar of this very young porn star body that is headless. You occupy some sort of like phantom limb head that is just capable of viewing and hearing what's going on in the situation. But it lays there. This guy is basically hired to lay there and get vigorously fluffed by 1, 2, sometimes 5 starlets.
While remaining motionless.
While remaining as motionless as possible. Now, he does move in certain areas, certain respects. If they flick his dick, then he flinches. I mean, it's kind of just a natural autonomic reaction. He's not there.
He's not a log?
He's not medically paralyzed or anything like that. But for the most part, doesn't move. Doesn't react, can't react, really.
All right.
Except for the parts that you would probably expect to react, those do react. But, yeah, it was just uncanny, like, for, having to lay there for 30 minutes and endure that kind of thing. I was almost, like, willing to give that guy applause just for, like, having to put up with that shit.
All right.
Because, I mean, it comes a point in time where, yeah, you have to acknowledge that even just common everyday 2D porn stuff that's been put out, it does involve sort of a faceless male avatar, at least the straight porn, or maybe in some cases the gay porn, where it is this faceless male avatar that doesn't really have much influence in what is actually going on. Like, it's not, people don't watch the porn for the men, they watch the porn for the women.
Yeah.
Some.
Well, it depends.
Granted, this is not a blanket generalization statement about all porn. This is just my experience.
But this is VR. We were talking about augmented reality.
Well, mixed reality. There are interactive vignettes.
All right, then.
But essentially, yeah.
My thing, one of my hyper focuses, like, within my bubble, was watching in the alpha program with Wonder, watching them all guffaw over the Apple event. Here's a company that's supposed to be making its own smartphone, and they are all like blah 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 all over the Apple event. And it's just like, wait a minute. You're going to be buying an Apple device, and you're guffawing over the new iPhone X. Mm-hmm. You're making a smartphone. How
you're making a heavily targeted, in some cases probably proprietary smartphone for a very niche audience.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, granted, anybody who has a smartphone probably plays games on it, but not everybody who has a smartphone is the kind of gamer you're trying to draw in.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those glass houses and chickens before they've hatched.
And when you have the CEO like Andy Kleiman saying in a Medium blog that he's going to probably buy an iPhone X, I'm just like, wait a minute, you're going to buy an iPhone X. I understand your phone's not out. It's not going to be out by the end of the year. It's supposed to be out next year at this point and everything like this. It's still saying, it still leaves me with a little bit of questioning of the confidence in your own device, because you can go buy the iPhone X. I don't care, but it's sounding like this is going to be the phone you're going to be using is the iPhone X, not your own personal
for the time
smartphone
being,
you're going to be making.
The thing about it is, like, if he said he was going to wait and buy his own phone, what does that say? He's instrumental in the creation of this device. You'd think they would give him one.
Well, the thing is, there's not even the caveat necessarily put in there, because, I mean, you think about it, you buy an iPhone X, you're buying it for a year, okay, or a 2-year contract. It's not like I'm purchasing this phone to use until our own phone comes onto the market. Mm-hmm. It's not. Saying it's like, this is my second fiddle until we're ready for our device. It's saying, I'm buying an iPhone X, Mm-hmm. So there is a question of, why are you talking about buying an iPhone X when you are making a smartphone?
Status. Granted, I mean, it teeters back and forth really, but iOS and Android kind of maintain this sort of 50-50 market share. Sometimes one's on top of the other, and both are just equally as outspoken. Whatever they're ones that are winning for that quarter, mm-hmm. But it is something that we have to acknowledge, is that just as many people use iPhones as people who use Android phones.
And my article, the most expensive iPhone X is $1,400.
Really?
The cheapest was $999.
Wow.
That's with the extra memory and everything.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Extra memory and
bells and whistles.
Yeah,
just like a car. Bells and whistles.
Dual SIM card.
Yeah. Sunroof.
Yeah.
Sunroof
makes 2 grand fries. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's 10 years of the iPhone is fading, just like anything else technology wise.
Well, so I mean, it is something to be said as far as the strength of that brand, in that there are so many people on the Android side mm-hmm. competing to make phones, and right now HTC is looking to offload their mobile.
Their phones have been okay, but I haven't been impressed by the last few HTC phones.
Yeah, it's rumored HTC is looking to offload. Samsung, LG still going strong. Google, of course, is still maintaining their their thing. I think, in fact, they were looking to buy HTC.
Yeah.
And was it Huawei?
Huawei
is coming up.
Now, here's a question. Do you think that the keyboards were faded away because of the iPhone?
Keyboards?
Yeah, the key phones on the
like the
smartphones.
Blackberries. You remember the
Blackberries?
Blackberries, and when I had
the
my
little slide ups.
Yeah, slide. Anything with just a physical keyboard.
I think it's because at some point touch responsiveness got to a point where a keyboard could be more easily emulated, and it was much easier to develop an emulated software keyboard than it was to
physically
develop an implemented hardware keyboard. So while those hardware keyboards were probably easier to use for certain people, adjusting to the on-screen keyboard and innovating things like swipe.
Swipe when it first got released was kind of a pain.
Now I will tell you the one thing that I wanted to see more of as far as innovation come from input into a device. I had a Palm 3 back in the day. Have you ever tried to type on a Palm 3?
Yes.
It's not typing on a keyboard.
Ding, ding,
No, you're not
ding.
sitting there tapping away on a little chiclet keyboard. All right, it had a little writing area, and you didn't write handwriting.
You wrote.
You learned a Palm 3 handwriting.
Yes.
It was a series of gestures that you had to do perfectly in order to like actually write out and stuff like that. I mean, I see that on my Cintiq tablet where they actually do have handwriting recognition. It's actually pretty well done handwriting recognition. If it can recognize my handwriting, it's well done. But I wanted to see something like that come about where it was like if you could just sit there and kind of do that. And Swipe generally has kind of taken over that where you just have these general gestures and it kind of picks the word that you're doing, kind of like just
That's what I do when I type them.
Well, speaking of with in regards to Google and Android and everything else, looks like Google is getting sued by Gab AI for federal antitrust laws for basically violating antitrust laws, and the reason is because.
So I didn't watch the movie. What is antitrust?
The movie? What?
There was a movie called Antitrust.
There's a movie called Antitrust, and that's
way back ago. That was a reference that completely flew over everybody.
Yeah, right.
I own the movie, and I've watched it. But
yeah.
Antitrust is basically, antitrust is you're using your power to dominate or squash the competition in the market.
So Google's dominating and squashing Gab?
Yeah.
Yes.
True. Google, at one point we reported Google was removing Gab's apps from their marketplace.
Yes.
Okay.
As far as any sort of mobile apps were concerned or anything like that, because of Gab being kind of a
right-leaning technology site.
Hive of miscreants
of scum and villainy.
Scum and villainy, yeah.
Well, the same could be said about Twitter sometimes.
And several other places.
But it comes down to they're saying because they can't put their app into the store.
Okay.
And Google's claiming it's because they are a hate speech app. Okay. And they're claiming, no, it's because we are right-leaning conservative and they are basically depriving us, compared to our competitors, access to the App Store because they're saying hate speech is something that goes on, number one, on Gab. Mm-hmm. It goes on Twitter. It goes on Facebook. It goes on ultimately all over social media. But because we are a conservative leaning, we are being squashed by Google because they do not agree with our values of freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm.
So
it sounds like they've got a pretty good standpoint to go on.
Yeah.
Especially it seems like the world right now has become pretty reactionary whenever it comes to something like that. No matter if accusations are founded or not,
mm-hmm.
Just the fact that the accusation is made is enough to have some sort of punishment brought against you, that you even came close to having such an accusation leveled against you.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like the Gab site is they're getting removed because of it's a complicated issue with all the laws in regards to the that go with social media and everything, because generally there's like the law like 203C that says that a site is free from being sued because of what somebody else writes on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's all these safe harbor type laws that help to protect. But because Google is saying because there are people writing bad things on your website, we are banning you from the store from being able to put your app in there. And the same could be said for every other app.
It's a weird thing because Gab alleges that the App Store that they are being denied access to is an essential facility or resource that is provided by Google, in that if they want to continue to operate within the social media, they need to be on smartphones, and the only way to really be on smartphones is to have access to the App Store and being able to sell their apps, which is technically true. Having the app there on the App Store is a resource in that it puts it in front of more people. It makes it easier to access, and it is delivered as a trusted app, which means it's easier to install on phones. Now, there are ways to get a hold of app packages for your phone and install them as an untrusted source.
But not a lot of people are willing to do that.
Not a lot of people are willing to do that.
And the reason why they're not willing to do that is typically because of how the contracts are set up. Is at that point you void the warranty of the phone, or you void your entire contract. So you get no support if anything actually happens with your phone.
Mm-hmm. And that's why people don't do that.
Which is, I mean, it's unfortunate that it came to this point, but I do have to basically say at this point I do have to side with Gab. Though I'm not a right-leaning person, nor do I really enjoy a lot of the content that I see on Gab. I go there basically to announce my streams and not really do much else. The fact is that this kind of stuff gets said on Twitter all the time. There's a side place called Ello, and I'm pretty sure a lot of that stuff gets put out there. Facebook, Tumblr, LiveJournal is still around. MySpace is still around. Like, all of these places are things that people can put this stuff out there. And, it's not Gab's fault. It's not Google's fault. It's not Twitter's fault that this stuff gets put out there. Right. But because Twitter, Facebook, Google have these big places with a lot of people using them, they feel like they can throw their weight around and, tell Gab, you're not allowed. And like I said, it's not Gab's fault. It's not like they were encouraging that kind of behavior on their site. They invited it saying, it's freedom of speech. You're allowed to say what you want to say. But it wasn't necessarily, you can only say this.
Yeah.
But they even still have laws. They have rules in there about, underneath hate speech is like don't threaten, things like that are true, true hate speech. The problem is the line's coming down to what do people consider hate speech. And in this case, it's almost seems like more of an attack because of the leanings of this site being more towards the conservative side versus a liberal progressive side.
Which again is not Gab's fault.
No.
Gab started up because it saw a niche available because a lot of conservative leaning people were being tossed out of Twitter and related sites, blocked or banned because of their views.
Yeah.
And so Gab opened up and said, we want to promote the free exchange of ideas, the free flow of information. And it isn't necessarily about the political leanings of the people who created it.
Right.
They just provided a forum.
And an alternative to Twitter.
They basically provided a place for people to go in and talk and speak their minds.
Yeah. And that happens in a lot of places. I mean, there are plenty of sites that are, basically become echo chambers of, whatever ideological views that there are out there. And this is weird because I think we're hitting the time where we're starting to see the Wild West of the internet start to kind of go away or have to be better defined by law. I'm very much with the Electronic Frontiers Foundation of, you got to have freedom of speech and everything like that on the internet. It needs to be open. It needs to be fair. But the last year, it seems like there's been a huge push to try to moderate all this speech. But, you have freedom of the press where they're able to say what they want. But the internet, they're wanting people to be censored and things like that. And it's starting to, the gray areas of laws are starting to come into question. Particularly the other case that came up this week was DMCA laws. Thanks to PewDiePie and Camp Santos.
So the story goes, PewDiePie did a bad. He said a very bad word on a live stream.
Yeah.
And that's the catalyst that sparked this event. Now, we're not really concerned about PewDiePie.
No.
Or saying what he said or anything like that. What we're saying we're concerned about is Camp Santos' response.
Correct.
Which is they based upon PewDiePie saying this, they DMCA'd a almost 2-year-old video that PewDiePie had on his channel and successfully had it taken down, even though PewDiePie had at one point privatized access to that video based upon complaints from Camp Santos themselves.
Yeah.
So this, unfortunately, is kind of a bad on Camp Santos' part because it sets a weird precedent for as far as game developers and intellectual property holders and stuff going on with the DMCA and fair use that is already in kind of a embroiled battle as it is.
Yeah. And a lot of people feel that is the wrong way to use the DMCA. It's an abuse of the DMCA system.
Yeah, because that's not how the DMCA works.
Right.
Like you can demonetize or remove a video that's been recently posted. You can remove them from then on out.
Yeah.
But you can't go back. As far as I know of that DMCA, you can't go back and take a video from. You're not supposed to, at least.
Well, you can because that's as soon as you become aware of it.
Well, obviously they did, and it worked. They removed it.
Yeah. Well, YouTube is notorious for listening to copyright strikes before
actually doing
anything about it. They'll just take the copyright strike as rote and move it from there. But PewDiePie it's weird. Does he, even with all the missteps and mistakes that he's made or all of the social gaffes that he's done at this point, is he still above reproach when it comes to these YouTube rules that are supposedly all binding and all encompassing? What if Camp Santos is just the start of a slew of copyright takedown claims against his channel that end up with his channel and all of its 60 million subscribers and so many hundreds of videos and millions of views as one of the cornerstone facets of YouTube content gets taken down because of the automated content?
That would be horrible. I think at that point, it becomes strike me down and I'll become more powerful than I ever was before.
Essentially.
Yeah. But the thing is with this is, so the Digital Millennial Copyright Act is supposed to protect your copyrighted work, but then you got the fair use also. And the thing that made the Camp Santos thing so hypocritical was they actually have up on their website for Firewatch a thing saying, question, can I stream this? Can I monetize? Can I make money off this? And it says, yes, we encourage you to stream this, share this, and monetize and make money off of this.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the developer goes, we don't like the fact that he said a naughty word during a live stream while playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, totally different game unrelated to this. So we want him to not do any future Camp Santos games. We're going to DMCA strike his old game, and we're going to encourage other developers to DMCA strike his videos. Yeah. So basically trying to start a crusade. And because underneath copyright laws, they go ahead, everybody, stream this stuff, make money off of it. Oh, PewDiePie said a bad word? Well, now we're going to renege on our copyright. And the whole conversation is coming out of this, and this still making waves, comes to the fair use argument. Are Let's Plays fair use? And there's been a split in the industry here, because you're taking a copyright material and you're providing commentary or criticism or essentially making a new product because it's your experience as a personality playing this game that people are coming to watch.
Okay.
Okay. Or your criticism of it to see if they want to buy it or not.
So what this basically says to me is that developers and producers, the people who create these games and put them out there, do view, and rightly so, this is how the industry kind of sprang up. They view the content that is generated around their games, the gameplay footage, the commentary, the streaming of it, as nothing more than advertisements.
Yeah.
And so once again, it's an advertisement, and if they don't like the context that it's presented in, this is kind of what the backlash was about before Gamergate. I hate calling it that, but there was kind of a backlash against the gaming media in general about how most of the reviews put out were just kind of ambiguous scores and were more just advertisements for the games. That there was no real critical review or analysis of a game. It was just whether or not the company paid for a favorable review or not.
Well, that one was kind of weird though, because I didn't really care for a lot of their games.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of their games were kind of they're all right.
Their
but
game?
they were there. They were there.
Yeah.
All right. But a lot of those comments were kind of bad.
Mm.
So that one was kind of like both sides.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them were bad. Some of those comments were just like, really? But my question here is on this PewDiePie. What?
No, I was just wondering.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So PewDiePie, that video was up there for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So why wait until now to do this?
Because PewDiePie hadn't done anything to really invite that. Well, unless you count his anti-Semitism that had Disney pull the contract or whatever.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Basically, this is saying at this point, the Camp Santos guy goes, I don't like what he said. So all of a sudden, I feel that I don't want to be associated with our brand.
Okay, then disassociate him from then on out.
Yeah.
Which includes the copyright strike.
Yeah. And by the Firewatch devs improperly using the copyright laws, okay?
Yeah.
It's opening up the, abuse of the whole system because
to be fair, further abuse.
Yeah, further abuse. Because what it's basically saying is because they feel that he crossed the line with a racial slur in some other game entirely
different. Most people
different.
do when they use racial slurs. Yeah, they cross the line.
They cross the line.
Yeah. We're not denying that. PewDiePie did a bad.
Or if he did something, let's say even at a lesser degree that the developer did not like, or even if they criticized their product, basically they're saying that we have the right, just based purely on a personal dislike of a creator, to have that video taken down.
Okay.
Okay. This is very similar to what happened with Jim Sterling and the what was it? Digital Suicide Products. Whatever it was there. Like he gave
Digital Suicide, I believe, is what it was called.
That's the one where like they had that zombie cowboy game.
All the really bad reviews of the games, and they were issuing DMCA takedowns and threatening to sue and everything.
Some of those were like, that's the one that was double-sided though, because that one, some of them were making actual threats to these people. I'm like, okay, now you're taking it too far.
But Jim Sterling wasn't. But the game developers were issuing threats, to sue and everything else. And they also were suing they were threatening to sue all the bad reviewers even on Steam.
Yeah.
Digital Suicide was. So this is another action of a developer basically getting butthurt. Okay.
Litigious about a negative view being cast on their game, crappy or not.
Yes.
Now,
those were bad.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, that one with not the Jim Sterling, the company.
Yeah.
The company itself.
Camp Santos.
Not Camp Santos. Jim Sterling.
Digital
Suicide.
Yeah.
That was bad on their part, but there were also some parts on Steam that was bad on Steam. Because some of those reviewers were making actual physical threats to the people. Those people should have been suspended.
Well, so here's my view on this. And it's not that I support or condone using the internet to promote hate speech or threats against anybody for any reason. All right? But, I mean, did Jim Sterling and Digital Suicide get into a fight like that?
Oh, yeah, they did.
Especially in a very public forum or something like that. And like it or not, everybody loves a bonfire.
Oh, yes, they do.
So
yes, they do. Hey, look, there's a bonfire. I want to put my 2 cents in.
Yeah, people will jump in and start throwing in their marshmallows and cracking open beers and just getting ready for a big old hootenanny.
Yep.
And it just turned into this very toxic situation.
Oh, it did. Especially
with things like, internet anonymity, which is proven to bring out the worst in people. So as far as the relevance or something like that, what it is a disagreement between a major content creator, Jim Sterling, who had there was no real recourse against him because he doesn't monetize his videos. He is entirely patron supported. And so the company the Digital Suicide made good on their threats to sue him. He won that lawsuit.
Oh yeah,
Jim Sterling won that lawsuit.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything against him.
It was fair use. It was a critique. It was a review of a game that was bad, shovelware, and things like that. Now, Camp Santos made a very good game. Firewatch is a very well put together game. It's one of the few games I support where it isn't just shooting dudes. It has this really.
It is shooting dudes, though.
Yeah, it's just games. If you want to make a game easy, all you have to do is make a character that jumps around and shoot dudes, and then put it up on Steam Greenlight.
I want to make a game called Shoot Dudes now.
Shoot Dudes. So Camp Santos made a really good game. The internet acknowledged this. I watched Markiplier play it. A lot of people watch PewDiePie play it.
I've never played this game.
A lot of major YouTubers put it out there. It became a very well known kind of a walking sort of narrative sort of story simulator kind of thing.
Okay.
Well,
and
the whole thing with this that makes it weird is, I mean, there's a lot of implications. Basically, what's happened is because they disagree with what PewDiePie did in a different aspect, completely unassociated with their game.
But because their game was listed amongst the hundreds of videos that are in PewDiePie's repertoire, and because this member of Camp Santos disagreed with what Felix said.
Yeah, it's basically justifying an attack on, basically free speech, freedom, or even freedom of the press, because really, YouTuber Let's Player is almost kind of a critique reviewer in a lot of aspects. Because if they like the game and you like the YouTuber, you're probably going to go buy the game. There's influence there.
A lot of times, yeah.
Okay, and because someone has made an offensive comment in an entirely different situation, that's what the implication is.
He still crossed the line.
It's one of those things though where it comes down to the content itself and who exactly has control over that content.
Yeah.
In that PewDiePie was monetizing his video of Firewatch for 2 years solid.
Yeah, but I don't get that. Like, why? It's been there for 2 years.
It's been there for nearly 2 years.
And then they wait until now?
He played the video, monetized it. Then PewDiePie had a gaffe on a live stream. And gaffe.
Which he's apologized for.
He said a racial slur. He apologized almost immediately after the fact.
Yeah.
He's issued 2 further apologies since then.
I saw that.
And he has made no move to fight Camp Santos on the copyright strike.
And I'm actually very, very disappointed, this is the second time I'm disappointed in PewDiePie. Because number one, it's, as being such a high level creator, you have a personal responsibility to, not make that sort of comment, even though within the context of the community, Players Unknown is very toxic like that, just like Call of Duty and a lot of other first-person shooters. But you have a personal responsibility to guard yourself to not make a comment like that because you are an influencer. I am disappointed a second time because he has decided I'm not going to fight this DMCA claim. He is one of the few people, just like H3H3, that had the power and the ability and the money to fight this DMCA claim in court and help to set the laws straight to better protect Let's Players.
Because, I mean, like it or not, as much as I support Camp Santos' game, Firewatch, and they're all right to make whatever statement in condemnation of PewDiePie statements or whatever like that, the copyright claim becomes a bad in its own right. Because that's not your video. In fact, you've already reaped the rewards of PewDiePie, 60 million subscribers, seeing PewDiePie playing your video. And now it's sort of, since you disagree with it and you want to do the copyright strike, but not only that, go further beyond that and say everybody else should copyright strike him and remove his videos from the internet.
This is a personal crusade.
This is a personal attack. And it ceases to be about any kind of agenda or vendetta or anything like that. It just becomes personal at that point. And it's not your video. It's already been done and used, and the critique's out there, and people have bought their game because of what PewDiePie said about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to change the subject on that one because, we're going to rant.
We're rounding the corner.
Another game I'm excited that just dropped is the new Metroid game.
The 3DS one?
Mm-hmm.
Have you played it?
Not yet, so I need to go buy it.
Yeah.
Because it's over at our local store.
So it's Metroid.
Our GameStop.
Metroid.
Not GameStop. Gamers Anonymous.
It's Metroid: The Return of Samus.
Mm-hmm.
Really, they'll have it over there? You think?
Yeah, I have them on my Facebook. They already posted pictures of them there.
No. So yeah, Metroid: The Return of Samus for the 3DS. Essentially, probably for the 2DS as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, the 3DS, you could just turn off the 3D part.
And I'm assuming it involves Samus returning and there are Metroids in it at some point.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that this is probably the 4th or 5th time that Samus has destroyed all the Metroids, as far as we know.
And got undressed at the end.
Well, I don't know if she gets undressed at the end. We won't know that until tomorrow, I guess. If it dropped today, we won't know until tomorrow. That's the thing about gamers, like gamers in general, you guys are just too good at video games. Like Destiny 2 dropped and not 24 hours later, people were already posting raid walkthroughs.
Yeah.
And like, in-game gear builds and stuff like that.
No, I think it was like a few days later, not like 24 hours.
24 hours later, I kid you not, people were already posting in-game content.
Huh.
Like they ground.
They had exceeded the level of the first set of raids that came out. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's what happens.
Metroid Return
when you
of Samus,
something like that.
Yeah.
You psych it up like that. People are like.
I haven't really been getting into it very much because unfortunately these old man hands are all gnarled and can't play handhelds very well.
Boo, old man hands.
Yeah.
Don't even hand me that.
I can't do handheld games very well. Now, granted, Metroid Return of Samus is probably going to be the one that brings me back. I might, if I can get a hold of a copy and check it out, I might check it out. But I've also barred myself from buying new video games. So, I'm not going to go and purchase anything for myself. One
would say that I just completely lost it because you just shut me down.
It's okay. We're
at the end here.
Yeah, I'm tapped too. I need to go take a pill.
All right. So this has been the GACC podcast, where we discuss games, anime, computers, and collectibles. You can find us in audio format on Apple iTunes and the Google Play Music Store. And you can find us in the video format on YouTube and VidMe. Make sure to also check us out on Twitter and Facebook and Gab. And we will see you all next time.
Goodbye.
Take care, folks. It is a problem. It does have that kind of Skyrim effect to it.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, you walk into a town and it's like, I lost my cat.
I need a recipe for this. No, go get it yourself. But I'll give you this shiny diamond.
You're there,
okay.
sit on my shoes. And...
What's up, dude?
Do you want to join the underground uprising?
Right?
Yeah.